All right. Sir, step away from the vehicle for me. Is there a problem, officer? Yeah, you can't park here.
The red and blue lights filled the night like fire. A police car blocked the narrow street. A tall black man stood by his parked sedan, hands raised, his jacket half open in the cold. A young white officer pointed a flashlight at his chest and said, "Sir, step away from the vehicle. You are being detained." People nearby slowed down. A woman at a bus stop covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "Isn't that a judge?" The man spoke calmly. His voice was steady, like he had practiced patience his whole life. "My name is Marcus Hale," he said. "I am a federal judge. I stopped here to help someone." The officer did not lower the light. "Turn around," he said. "Hands behind your back." The metal cuffs clicked shut. A federal judge.in handcuffs. During a simple parking stop. No one knew yet that this moment would force a city to pay $850,000 right now. All anyone could see was a black man being detained under flashing lights, while his words fell into the night like they did not matter. And as the officer pulled him toward the cruiser, a voice trembled from the sidewalk. "Please," an old woman cried. "He didn't do anything." The officer ignored her. The judge turned his head, eyes calm but burning, and said one sentence that froze the street. This did not have to happen. The screen would fade right there. But the story did not start there. Hours earlier, the night had been quiet. Marcus Hale had finished a long day at the courthouse in Brookside City, a clean but divided place where tall buildings stood beside tired neighborhoods. He did not wear his robe anymore. He never did after work. Tonight, he wore a brown jacket, simple jeans, and old leather shoes. He liked to blend in. He liked to feel normal. Marcus believed in kindness. He believed in listening. His mother had taught him that when he was small. "People don't always see you," she used to say, "but you still have to see them." That lesson stayed with him all his life. Marcus was driving home when he saw her. She stood near the corner of Maple and 8th, holding a plastic bag that had torn open. Cans rolled across the sidewalk. Cars passed without stopping. She was old, her back was bent. Her gray hair peeked out from a loose scarf. Marcus slowed the car. Most people would have driven on. Marcus did not. He parked along the curb, just past a sign that said "No parking after 8 p.m. It was 8:12. He did not notice the time. He got out and walked toward her. "Ma'am," he said gently, "can I help you?" She looked up, startled, then relieved. "Oh, thank you," she said. "My hands aren't what they used to be." They knelt together, picking up cans. She told him her name was Eleanor Price. She lived 3 blocks away. Her husband had passed years ago. Her knees hurt and the bus was late. Marcus listened. He always listened. When they finished, he offered to walk her home. She smiled and said she did not want to trouble him. He insisted anyway. Kindness does not ask permission. They walked slowly. Eleanor leaned on her cane. Marcus carried the bag. She talked about her garden, about how roses were harder to grow now, about how the world felt louder than before. At her building, Marcus helped her up the steps. She thanked him again and again. "You remind me of my son," she said. He had the same calm eyes. Marcus smiled. "I'm glad I could help," he said. When he turned back toward his car, the street felt different. Quieter, sharper. A patrol car rolled up behind his sedan. The lights flashed once, then twice. Marcus felt a familiar tightness in his chest. He knew this feeling. He took a slow breath and walked back to his car. The officer stepped out quickly. Young, clean uniform, hand already near his belt. "Sir," the officer said, "you can't park here." Marcus nodded. "I understand. I was just helping an elderly woman. I'll move the car now." The officer's eyes moved over Marcus's body, his jacket, his hands, his face. "Do you live around here?" the officer asked. "Yes," Marcus said. "Not far." "Step away from the vehicle," the officer said. Marcus paused. "Is there a problem?" "Step away from the vehicle," the officer repeated. Marcus did. The flashlight came out. "What's your name?" the officer asked. Marcus Hale. Do you have ID? Yes. Marcus reached slowly into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. The officer stiffened. Don't move so fast. Marcus stopped. His hand froze in midair. I apologize, he said. I'm trying to cooperate. The officer took the wallet and flipped it open. He frowned. You're a judge? He asked, almost laughing. Yes, Marcus said calmly. A federal judge. The officer looked up sharply. Then his face hardened. Turn around, he said. Marcus's heart beat faster now, but his voice stayed level. Officer, I have explained why I parked here. There is no need for this. Turn around, the officer said louder. That was when Eleanor opened her door. She had forgotten to give Marcus his jacket button that had fallen off. She stepped outside and saw the lights, saw Marcus with his hands raised. Oh my, she whispered. She hurried down the steps. Officer, she said, her voice shaking. He was helping me. Please. He's a good man. The officer did not look at her. The cuffs came out. Cold metal closed around Marcus's wrists. A crowd began to form. Phones lifted. Whispers spread. Why is he arresting him? He was just parked. Isn't that the guy who helped the old lady? Marcus stood still. He did not fight. He did not shout. He looked at Eleanor. It's okay, he said softly. Please go inside. Tears filled her eyes. The officer pulled Marcus toward the car. What am I being detained for? Marcus asked. Suspicion, the officer said. Suspicion of what? The officer did not answer. And right there, under the flashing lights, with the crowd watching and Eleanor crying, the moment crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Because when Marcus was placed against the cruiser, another patrol car arrived. And the second officer looked at Marcus's face, looked at the cuffs, looked at the ID still in his partner's hand, and his eyes widened. Hey, he said slowly, do you know who that is? The first officer turned, and the night held its breath. The second officer stared at Marcus like he had just stepped into the wrong movie. The flashing lights painted Marcus's face red, then blue, then red again. His hands were still locked behind his back. The cold metal pressed into his skin. What did you say? The first officer asked. The second officer swallowed. I asked if you know who that is. I know who he says he is, the first officer replied. His voice was sharp now, defensive. People lie. Marcus stayed quiet. He had learned long ago that sometimes silence was safer than words. The second officer stepped closer. He looked at the ID again, then at Marcus, then at the small crowd gathering near the sidewalk. His badge number checks out, the second officer said. Federal Judiciary. For a second, the night felt like it might crack open. But the first officer did not unlock the cuffs. So what? He said. That doesn't mean he gets special treatment. Marcus finally spoke. Officer, I am not asking for special treatment. I am asking for fair treatment. The words were calm, clear, gentle. That made the first officer angrier. You parked illegally, he said. You refused to comply. I complied, Marcus said. I explained. Eleanor stood nearby, clutching her cane with both hands. Her face was pale. He helped me, she said again, louder this time. I would have fallen. The second officer looked at her, then back at Marcus. Sir, he said quietly, did you resist at any point? No, Marcus answered. A few phones were now fully raised. One person whispered, This doesn't look right. The first officer noticed. Everyone step back, he snapped. This is an active situation. The word active hung in the air like a warning. The second officer lowered his voice. Maybe we should uncuff him and sort this out. No, the first officer said. We're doing this by the book. Marcus knew that Tone.it was not about the book anymore. It was about pride. They placed him in the back of the cruiser. The door shut with a heavy thud. The sound echoed inside his chest. From the back seat, Marcus could see Eleanor through the window. She looked small, lost. I'm sorry, she mouthed. Marcus nodded. He wanted to tell her this was not her fault. That kindness should never end like this. The car did not move right away. The officers talked outside. Low voices, short sentences, sharp hand movements. Minutes passed. Marcus closed his eyes and breathed. He thought about his mother again, about how she told him to stay steady, even when the ground felt unkind. Finally, the door opened. "Step out," the first officer said. Marcus did. The cuffs stayed on. "Where are you taking him?" Eleanor asked. "For questioning," the officer replied. "But he lives here," she said. "He's not dangerous." The officer ignored her. As they guided Marcus toward the station car, another vehicle pulled up. This one did not have flashing lights. A woman stepped out, mid-40s, serious eyes, plain coat. "Evening," she said. "I'm Captain Laura Bennett." The officer stiffened. "What's going on?" she asked. The second officer spoke first. "Parking stop. Detention." Captain Bennett looked at Marcus's hands. "Why is he cuffed?" The first officer answered. "He was uncooperative." Marcus met her eyes. "I was calm and compliant." Captain Bennett studied him for a long second. Then she looked at Eleanor. "What happened?" the captain asked. Eleanor told the story in a shaking voice. About the groceries, about the help, about the cuffs. Captain Bennett exhaled slowly. "This didn't need to go this far," she said. The first officer bristled. "With respect, Captain." "Enough," she said. She turned to Marcus. "Sir, I apologize for the inconvenience. We'll review this." The word inconvenience felt small, but Marcus nodded. "May I remove the cuffs?" she asked. "Yes," Marcus said. The metal clicked open. Relief rushed through his arms. The crowd murmured. Some people looked satisfied. Others looked uneasy. Captain Bennett handed Marcus his wallet. "You're free to go for now." "For now?" Marcus asked gently. Her jaw tightened. "We need statements." Marcus understood. "Of course." Eleanor stepped forward and hugged him before anyone could stop her. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Marcus patted her shoulder. "Get home safe." The officers cleared the scene. The lights shut off. Cars moved again. The street returned to normal. But Marcus knew something had shifted. Later that night, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, staring at a glass of water he had not touched. His phone buzzed again and again. Missed calls. Messages. One from his clerk, one from a colleague, one from a local reporter. How did they know? Marcus murmured. He hadn't told anyone. He opened the news. There it was. A short video. Shaky. Dark. Flashing lights. His voice calm. The officer loud. The caption read, "Federal judge detained during parking stop." The video had already been shared thousands of times. Marcus leaned back in his chair. This was bigger than him now. The next morning, he returned to work like always. Same walk. Same elevator. Same quiet halls. But the looks were different. Some people nodded with respect. Others looked away. In chambers, his clerk, Daniel, closed the door. "They're asking questions," Daniel said. "The city, the police union, everyone." Marcus nodded. "Tell them the truth." Daniel hesitated. "Sir, are you okay?" Marcus smiled faintly. "I will be." At lunchtime, Marcus received a message he did not expect. From Eleanor. She had found his name online. "I saw the video," she wrote. "I'm sorry my trouble became yours." Marcus replied right away. "You were never trouble," he typed. "Kindness matters." That afternoon, Marcus was called into a meeting. City lawyers, police leadership, serious faces around a long table. They spoke carefully, too carefully. "We want to resolve this quietly," one man said. Marcus listened. They talked about policies, training, procedures. They did not talk about fear, or dignity, or the way metal cuffs feel when you have done nothing wrong. When the meeting ended, Marcus walked out alone. Outside, reporters waited. "Judge Hale," someone shouted. "Do you plan to sue?" Marcus stopped. He turned slowly. I plan to tell the truth, he said. Nothing more. Nothing less. As he walked away, his phone buzzed again. This time it was an alert. Breaking news. Another video had surfaced. A longer one. Clearer. It showed the moment the cuffs went on. And the officer's words, caught sharp and loud. You people always think you're above the law. Marcus stared at the screen and knew, deep in his bones, that the story was no longer about a parking stop. It was about everything that came after. The new video spread faster than the first one. By sunrise, it was everywhere. On phones, on TVs, in waiting rooms, on morning news shows with serious faces and quiet voices. Marcus watched none of it. He sat at his kitchen table again, wearing the same jacket from the night before. The cuffs had left faint marks on his wrists. He rubbed them without thinking. Daniel called early. They're saying the officer used biased language, Daniel said. The city is scrambling. Marcus sighed. Words matter, he said. They always have. At the courthouse, security treated Marcus differently. Too polite, too careful, like he might break. In the hallway, Judge Robert Klein caught up to him. I saw the footage, Klein said. I'm sorry. Marcus nodded. Thank you. You could make this very public, Klein added. You'd be within your rights. Marcus paused. This isn't about me. Klein raised an eyebrow. Then what is it about? Marcus thought of Eleanor, of her shaking hands, of the fear in her eyes when the cuffs clicked. It's about what happens when people stop seeing each other, Marcus said. That afternoon, Eleanor watched the news from her small living room. She clutched her mug tightly. That's him, she told her neighbor Ruth. That's the man who helped me. Ruth shook her head. It's awful. Eleanor felt heavy guilt press down on her chest. If she had not dropped the cans, if she had not accepted help, if she had walked faster. She stood up suddenly. I need to say something, Eleanor said. To who? Ruth asked. To everyone. That evening, a press conference was announced. Not by the city, not by the police, by Eleanor Price. Reporters gathered outside her apartment building. Microphones pointed at her as she stepped forward, leaning on her cane. Her voice trembled, but she spoke clearly. He helped me, she said. He was kind, and kindness should never lead to handcuffs. The crowd went quiet. Marcus watched the clip later that night. He closed his eyes when she finished. She should not have had to do that. The next day, the city called again. This time, their tone was different. We're prepared to discuss compensation, a lawyer said over the phone. For what? Marcus asked. For the incident, the lawyer replied. To avoid a prolonged situation. Marcus said nothing. That silence spoke loudly. Inside the police department, tension grew. The first officer, the one who made the stop, sat in a small office. His name was Officer Tyler Brooks. He stared at the table as an internal investigator spoke. Why did you say what you said? The investigator asked. I was stressed, Brooks replied. Crowd was forming. He talked back. He identified himself, the investigator said. You escalated. Brooks clenched his jaw. He made me look bad. Across the city, protests began. Small at first. People holding signs. People standing quietly. Marcus did not attend. He believed in calm. He believed in process. But he also believed in truth. At home, Marcus opened a drawer and took out an old photo. A younger version of himself stood beside his mother on courthouse steps. She had smiled proudly. Make it better than it was, she had said. That night, Marcus agreed to one interview. Just one. The reporter asked careful questions. How did it feel? What went through your mind? Do you think race played a role? Marcus answered simply. I felt small, he said. And I am not. The interview aired that evening. The response was immediate. Messages of support flooded in. Messages of anger too. Some people said he was overreacting. Others said he had been patient for too long. The city council called an emergency meeting. Behind closed doors, numbers were discussed. Risk. Reputation. Money. One council member spoke plainly. This could cost us. Another nodded. It already is. A figure was written on a board. $850,000. Silence filled the room. That's the offer, someone said. Final. The mayor rubbed his temples. Make it happen. But Marcus did not know this yet. What he did know was that something darker was moving. Late that night, Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Judge Hale, a voice said. Calm. Cold. You should reconsider how loud this gets. Marcus straightened. Who is this? A friend, the voice replied. Of the department. This conversation is inappropriate, Marcus said. So is what happened to you, the voice answered. But here we are. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone. The next morning, Daniel burst into chambers. Sir, he said, you need to see this. He held up a tablet. Another video. This one from a body cam Marcus had not seen. It showed the moment before the stop. Officer Brooks talking to another officer, laughing, then saying clear as day, watch this, bet he runs. Marcus felt his chest tighten. This was no longer about a mistake. It was about intent. Daniel swallowed. The city just called again. Marcus looked up. And they're offering a settlement, Daniel said. $850,000. Marcus leaned back slowly. The number sat heavy in the room. That's a lot of money, Daniel added. They want this done. Marcus closed his eyes. Outside, thunder rolled. A storm was coming. Marcus opened his eyes and said one sentence that made Daniel freeze. Tell them I haven't decided. At that exact moment, across town, Officer Brooks received an envelope at his door. No return address. Inside was a single printed screenshot. Marcus's face. The cuffs. The headline. And beneath it, one handwritten line. You started something you can't stop. Officer Brooks's hands began to shake. And far away, Eleanor sat by her window, watching the dark clouds gather, whispering a prayer. Subscribe to stay updated, share to keep others safe, and comment where you're watching from. As the city prepared for a reckoning no one could control, the screenshot in the envelope did not leave Officer Tyler Brooks's mind. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at it again and again. The words written below it felt louder each time he read them. You started something you can't stop. Brooks told himself it was a prank. Someone online trying to scare him. But his hands still shook. He had been trained to face danger, yet this felt different. This danger did not wear a uniform. At the station the next morning, the mood was heavy. Whispers followed him down the hallway. Doors closed when he walked by. Eyes stayed low. Internal Affairs called him in again. This time there were two investigators. They placed a tablet on the table and pressed play. The body cam footage ran again. The laughter. The words. The moment Brooks said, "Watch this," the room stayed quiet after the video ended. Do you understand why this is a problem? One investigator asked. Brooks swallowed. I was joking. The other investigator leaned forward. You were on duty. Brooks had no answer. Across the city, Marcus Hale stood at his office window, watching traffic move below. He had not slept much. The phone call still echoed in his head. You should reconsider how loud this gets. Daniel entered quietly. The city wants a response, Daniel said. They're pushing hard. Marcus nodded. Pressure often comes before truth. Daniel hesitated. There's more. Marcus turned. The police union released a statement, Daniel said. They say the officer followed protocol. Marcus exhaled slowly. That afternoon, Marcus met with a civil rights attorney named Karen Lewis. She spoke plainly, without drama. They're scared, she said. The city doesn't want trial. Too many cameras. Too many records. Marcus folded his hands. I don't want revenge. Karen nodded. Then don't take revenge. Take accountability. Meanwhile, Eleanor Price sat at her kitchen table, writing on a yellow notepad. Her handwriting was shaky but determined. She was practicing what she would say if asked again. He stopped to help me. He was kind. He did not deserve that. A knock came at her door. She opened it to find a young man holding a microphone. "Mrs. Price," he said, "may I ask you a few questions?" Eleanor felt her heart race. "No," she said gently. "I've said enough." She closed the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. This attention felt loud. Too loud. Later that evening, Marcus received a message from Eleanor. "They keep coming," she wrote. "I'm tired." Marcus replied right away. "You don't owe anyone anything," he wrote. "Your kindness already spoke." The next day brought another meeting. This one was larger. City lawyers, police leadership, the mayor. The settlement offer was placed on the table again. $850,000. "This resolves the matter," the mayor said. "No admission of wrongdoing." Marcus looked around the room. "So nothing changes?" he asked. "We'll review training," someone replied. Marcus shook his head slowly. "Review is not the same as repair," he said. The room went quiet. After the meeting, Marcus walked alone through the courthouse halls. He passed a young black man in handcuffs, escorted by deputies. The man's eyes met Marcus's for a brief second. Fear, confusion, resignation. Marcus felt something hard settle in his chest. That night, protests grew larger. People filled the square outside City Hall. Candles flickered. Signs rose into the air. "Kindness is not a crime. Justice sees color. Do better." Marcus watched from a distance, unseen. Inside the police department, Captain Laura Bennett faced her own storm. Emails poured in. Calls from city officials. Pressure from above. She opened a file marked confidential. Inside were complaints. Old ones. Against Officer Brooks. Not arrests. Not crimes. But patterns. Disrespect. Escalation. Language. Captain Bennett closed the file and made a decision. The next morning, Officer Brooks was called in again. This time, his badge was taken. "You are being placed on administrative leave," Captain Bennett said. Brooks stared at her. "You're throwing me under the bus." She met his eyes. "You drove it there." Brooks stormed out. Within hours, the news broke. Officer involved in judge detention placed on leave. The city's phone lines lit up. Marcus learned about it from Daniel. "They're trying to calm the fire," Daniel said. Marcus nodded. Fire doesn't calm itself. That evening, Marcus finally went to see Eleanor. He brought flowers. Simple ones. She smiled when she saw him. "You didn't have to come," she said. "I wanted to," Marcus replied. They sat together in her small living room. Quiet. Safe. "I never meant for all this," Eleanor said softly. Marcus looked at her. "Kindness is never wrong," he said. The reaction was. She nodded. As Marcus stood to leave, Eleanor touched his hand. "Whatever you choose," she said. "Make it kinder than what they gave you." Marcus promised her he would try. The next morning, the city council voted behind closed doors. No press. No cameras. The settlement passed. $850,000 approved. But before the paperwork could be finalized, something unexpected happened. A local journalist released a leaked internal memo. It showed emails between officers, jokes, slurs, plans to teach him a lesson. The memo went viral in minutes. Marcus saw it while standing in line for coffee. His phone buzzed nonstop. Daniel called, breathless. "Sir," he said, "this just changed everything." At the police station, alarms rang. Captain Bennett stared at the screen in disbelief. "That was never meant to be public," someone said. Across town, Officer Brooks watched the news from his couch, face pale. And at City Hall, the mayor slammed his fist on the table. "Who leaked this?" he demanded. Outside, the crowd grew louder, angrier. And as night fell, flashing lights returned to the streets. This time not for a parking stop, but for something far bigger that could no longer be contained. The city did not sleep that night. Sirens echoed far past midnight. News vans crowded the streets. Helicopters circled slowly, their lights brushing rooftops like nervous fingers. The leaked memo was everywhere. People read it on their phones with tight jaws and shaking hands. They saw the jokes, the words, the plans written as if real lives were a game. At City Hall, emergency meetings stacked on top of each other. Lawyers spoke fast. Advisors whispered. The mayor paced. "This is out of control," he said. "It's already controlled," one aide replied quietly. "Just not by us." Across town, Marcus Hale sat at his kitchen table again. The same place, the same glass of water. He had not touched it. Daniel stood near the counter, scrolling through updates. "They're calling it systemic," Daniel said. "They're calling for resignations." Marcus nodded. Words finally matching truth. Daniel looked up. "The city wants to finalize the settlement today." Marcus closed his eyes. The number felt heavier now. Not because of the money, but because of what it meant. Silence. Closure. A line drawn under pain. "Do they admit fault?" Marcus asked. Daniel shook his head. "No." Marcus opened his eyes. "Then they admit nothing." Outside, protesters gathered again. Larger than before. Louder. Still peaceful but charged. Eleanor watched from her window, candle burning on the sill. She prayed quietly, not for anger to win, but for listening to begin. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Mrs. Price," a woman's voice said. "This is Captain Laura Bennett." Eleanor straightened. "Yes. I wanted to apologize," the captain said. "Personally." Eleanor swallowed. "Thank you. There will be changes," the captain added. "I promise." Eleanor nodded, though the captain could not see her. "Promises are seeds," she said. "They still need care." At the police department, Officer Brooks sat alone in a locker room. His badge was gone. His gun locked away. The envelope lay in his bag. He did not know who sent it. He did not know who else knew. What he did know was that the world he trusted no longer trusted him. His phone buzzed. A message from a union rep. "Lay low. Don't talk." Brooks leaned back and covered his face. In a quiet office across the city, Karen Lewis prepared documents. She worked fast but carefully. "This memo changes leverage," she told Marcus over the phone. "The city is exposed." Marcus listened. "I don't want leverage," he said. "I want repair." Karen paused. "Sometimes leverage is what forces repair." That afternoon, Marcus returned to the courthouse. Not to work, to observe. He sat in the back of a small courtroom. A young man stood before a judge, accused of a minor offense. Nervous, sweating, Marcus watched how the bail was set, how the words were spoken, how fast a life could be pushed sideways. He left before the case ended. Outside, a reporter approached him. "Judge Hale," she said, "will you accept the settlement?" Marcus looked at her camera, at the lens that had shown him in cuffs. "I will accept accountability," he said. "Money is not accountability." The clip aired within the hour. The city's phones rang off the hook. By evening, city officials called Marcus again. This time, they sounded tired. "We are prepared to include policy changes," a lawyer said. "Training, oversight." "In writing?" Marcus asked. "Yes." "And public?" Silence. Then, "Yes." Marcus closed his eyes. "Then we can talk." Night fell again. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then harder. It washed the streets, the signs, the chalk messages on the sidewalks. Inside City Hall, the final terms were drafted. $850,000. Independent Review Board. Mandatory bias training. Public apology. The mayor signed with a heavy hand. At the same time, Captain Bennett stood before a line of cameras. "We failed," she said, "and we will change." Some believed her. Some did not. Marcus received the document late that night. He read every word. Slowly, carefully. He thought of Eleanor, of his mother, of the young man in court. He signed. The next morning, the city announced it. City to pay $850,000 in settlement after judge detained. The headline spread fast. Some cheered. Some scoffed. Some asked, "Is that enough?" Marcus stood at his window and watched the city wake up. Daniel entered quietly. "It's done." Marcus nodded. "It started." Across town, Officer Brooks watched the announcement on TV. His name was not mentioned, but he felt seen anyway. His phone buzzed again. Another message. Unknown number. This doesn't end with money. Brooks's breath caught. At Eleanor's apartment, a letter arrived. From the city. An apology. She read it twice, then placed it beside the candle. "It's a start," she whispered. That afternoon, Marcus walked the same street where it all began. Maple and 8th. The sign still read "No parking after 8 p.m. He stood there for a long moment. Then a young boy on a bike stopped nearby. "Mister," the boy said, "are you that judge?" Marcus smiled. "I am." The boy nodded seriously. "My mom said you helped a lady." Marcus knelt to the boy's level. "I did." The boy smiled. "That was nice." Marcus stood, heart full and heavy at the same time. As he turned to leave, sirens sounded in the distance. Not for him. Not today. But Marcus knew better than to think the story was over. Because while the city had paid, and the papers were signed, something deeper had been exposed. And not everyone was ready to let it heal. The city tried to move on. New headlines pushed the old ones down. Another story. Another crisis. Another distraction. But some stories do not disappear. They settle. They wait. Weeks after the settlement, the Independent Review Board held its first public meeting. The room was full. Cameras lined the walls. People sat shoulder to shoulder. Marcus Hale did not sit at the front. He sat among the people. When it was his turn to speak, he stood slowly. "I did not ask for this moment," he said, "but I accept the responsibility that came with it." He spoke in simple words. About the night. About the cuffs. About the old woman who needed help. "I was not harmed the most that night," he said. "I was protected by my position. Others are not." The room was quiet. He finished with one sentence. "Justice is not proven by what we say after harm, but by what we change before the next harm." Applause did not come right away. Then it did. Outside, Eleanor Price watched the meeting on a small TV in a community center. She sat with other seniors, her hands folded in her lap. "That's him," someone said. "That's the judge." Eleanor smiled softly. "He's just a good man." After the meeting, Captain Laura Bennett resigned. Not in anger. Not in shame. In a letter, she wrote, "Leadership means knowing when new hands are needed." Officer Tyler Brooks did not return to patrol. The investigation ended quietly but firmly. His record followed him. No charges were filed, but no department nearby would take him. One afternoon, Brooks sat alone in a small park. Children played in the distance. Laughter floated through the air. He looked at his hands. For the first time, he did not blame anyone else. He stood up and walked away. The department announced changes. Real ones this time. Body cameras always on. Clear rules for stops. Community review with real power. Not perfect, but better. Months later, Marcus returned to Maple and 8th again. This time, he was not alone. Eleanor stood beside him, leaning on her cane. A small group gathered around them. The city had placed a bench there. A simple plaque read, "In honor of everyday kindness." No names, no titles, just meaning. Eleanor touched the bench and laughed softly. All this over a few cans. Marcus smiled. All this because someone cared. A reporter nearby asked, "Judge Hale, do you feel this case is over?" Marcus thought for a moment. "This case," he said, "has ended." "And the issue?" the reporter pressed. Marcus looked at the street, at the people walking by, at a police car passing slowly, carefully. "The issue continues," he said, "but so does the work." That evening, Marcus sat at home, reading. His phone buzzed. A message from Eleanor. "I planted roses today," she wrote. "They're growing." Marcus replied, "So is hope." The city never forgot the number. $850,000. Some saw it as a loss. Others as a warning. A few as a lesson. But Marcus saw it differently. It was the cost of ignoring kindness, the cost of forgetting empathy, the cost of not listening. And it was a reminder that one small act, one parked car, one helping hand, one unjust moment, can force a whole city to look in the mirror. As the lights dimmed on Maple and 8th, the street stayed quiet. No sirens. No shouting. Just people passing through. And somewhere in that quiet, the lesson remained. Kindness should never be suspicious. Justice should never depend on status. And seeing each other, truly seeing each other, can change the ending of a story before it ever needs to be told again.